Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So this is just going to be a bunch of like, tell me about this questions, because your book is filled with such amazing and colorful and just so well told anecdotes. But let's start with the context under which you became the reporter on the Trump campaign.
It was a series of unfortunate events. No, I was a London correspondent. I lived overseas. I happened to be home to take care of a few things, to remind the bosses that I existed, because they tend to forget you when you're overseas. And Donald Trump had just announced Macy's was dropping him, Univision was dropping him, NBC dropped the pageant, and they needed someone to cover it. And I was just literally standing around the newsroom, and a friend of mine on Nightly News, Brad Jaffe, said, Katy's here, she can do the story. And I did a couple more stories, one for the Today Show, a couple more for Nightly, and after 3 or 4 days, I got a call from the president of the news division saying, hey, we're going to put you on the Trump campaign. And they said, don't worry, it'll just be 6 weeks. And it turned into 510 days.
Oh my gosh. And you actually took umbrage at that because you thought that meant that they didn't take you seriously.
Well, yeah, because when you're covering politics, you know where you rank in the structure of the company with who they assign you to. And if they're assigning you to Jeb Bush, you're doing well. If they assign you to Hillary Clinton, you're doing well. You're Andrea Mitchell. If they assign you to somebody they don't expect to go anywhere and who many regard as a joke, you have to wonder, wait, hold on, am I a joke as well?
And tell us what happened. You got in a car that day and drove to New Hampshire.
Yeah, so I get in a car. I drive to New Hampshire from New York. Donald Trump's holding a rally around a backyard pool. It's like not these 10,000 person rallies that we got used to. It was a couple hundred people around a backyard pool at a private home, and he's just riffing. He's kind of testing out the lines that became so well known and so popular later on in the campaign. And I'm standing there, and it's raining, and I'm supposed to go on a vacation with my French boyfriend a week from then, and I still hadn't told him that, oh, I'm not coming home for God knows how long. And thinking, what in the world am I doing here? This guy's rambling on about the standing ovations he gets, and he's talking about rapists coming across the border. Okay, I'll tweet what he's saying. I mean, I'm just taking notes. And suddenly I hear my name, and he is calling me out from the stage. The very first time I'd ever shared the same oxygen as Donald Trump, he's using me as his representation of why the media is unfair, is biased, and shouldn't be trusted.
And what did he say? Is that when he called you Little Katy for the
first
time?
No, that was a little bit later on. No, he said, Katy, you haven't even looked up at me once. Basically, Katy, you're not paying attention to me.
And he knew that you were there. He knew that NBC was there, and he got your name somehow.
He knew I was there. He knew that NBC had assigned me full-time to the campaign. So it gave him a sense, I presume, a sense of status. Because if NBC News is assigning you a full-time correspondent for your presidential campaign, that does mean that we are taking you seriously.
Right. And then when was the first time he called you Little Katy? When was that?
Little Katy was the day of the Muslim ban, the day that he announced that he wanted to close America's doors to everybody.
And what happened there?
Of the Muslim religion. You got to remember the context of where we were in this country at that time. A few weeks earlier, around that time, the couple in San Bernardino went and shot up a party, an office party. The day before the Muslim ban announcement, President Obama had given a speech on terrorism. And Donald Trump, in order to be the most hardline and to be the guy that will keep you safe, comes out with this Muslim ban. And he had been saying, this administration is not properly vetting people. This administration is letting people through our borders that will harm you and your family. The majority of Republican voters at that time, the thing they most feared was being a victim of terrorism. And he said, essentially, the media is complicit in this because they're not reporting it. So we aren't keeping you safe. We, the media, reporters that are standing in this press pen, the belly of a warship where Donald Trump is holding a rally in South Carolina, these are the people who are not keeping you safe. And from the stage, everybody is riled up. They're whipped up into a frenzy. It's a cliche, but it feels like a tinderbox, and you're just waiting for someone to light a match. And Donald Trump calls me out. He says, "Little Katy, Katy Tur, she's back there." And he points me out. And the entire room, thousands of people, turn around and boo at me at once, stand on their chairs, scream at me. And I remember thinking, what can you do in this situation? So I smiled and I waved because, at that point, he had called me out so many times at rallies that I found that the best way to deal with it was to just not pretend like you're in on it, but you diffuse the situation by showing that you're not intimidated by it.
Why do you think he targeted you? I mean, yes, he targeted others as well, but why do you think he was so specifically targeting you?
It's a complicated question, and I obviously cannot get into the mind and impulses, everyone at least, of Donald Trump. But I was the most familiar reporter to him on the campaign. I was there since essentially day one. There would be, there was a stretch of time, months-long stretch of time, where I was the only person he would recognize other than his campaign staff in a room in Tennessee, in Grand Rapids, in Nevada, wherever he happened to be. I was the network news reporter that was always there with him before the other networks started assigning their own correspondents full time. So he knew that when he wanted to use the media as a foil, when he wanted to point somebody out, he knew that I was in the crowd. He always knew I was there. And also, I tended to report things that he didn't like. I was very honest about the campaign, both with the support that he was getting, but with the anger that he was creating and the untrue things he had a tendency to say.
And how do you stay impartial under a context like that, when he's personally targeting you and when he's blaming your very profession for so many things?
You just don't listen to it. It's noise. Mm-hmm. It's noise. You put it to the side, and you keep doing your job. But the way that he targeted me in the media was enlightening, and it revealed a lot about how he was campaigning and what he was trying to do and what sort of prejudices he was trying to exploit, how he was trying to paint himself. So you could use it to understand him better, but personal attack, no personal attack, you treat it as noise.
And you got death threats.
Also noise.
Also noise. There has been some talk that, the media, played a role in helping elect Donald Trump, $1.9 or $2 billion in free advertising. What do you say to comments like that?
Well, Donald Trump was unlike anything anyone had ever seen, and he was garnering a lot of attention. He was getting 20,000 people to show up at a rally in August of 2015 in Mobile, Alabama. This was at this time, Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz were getting maybe a couple hundred people most of the time, and he was getting 20,000 people. He got a lot of attention because he was getting a lot of attention from supporters. No one remembers anything like that for a Republican candidate, especially 6 months before any primary. I think we all need to look back and see how we covered 2016 and how we can cover it better in 2020, and what did we do that maybe went too far? Did we give him too much attention for these rallies? Should we have aired them as much as we did? I think that's a valid conversation. Did we talk enough to the voters, or did we harp too much on a tweet? I think those are discussions that are worth having. I don't think it is right to say that the media elected Donald Trump. We covered him pretty toughly.
Yeah. And what did you learn from being so close to it? So many people were so surprised when he won, but you weren't.
I wasn't surprised only because he defied political gravity at every turn. Every time somebody said, this was going to end him, he came out stronger. And we would see such enthusiasm within these crowds. You knew that the people that showed up for a Trump rally, and sometimes they'd wait for hours in sub-zero temperatures or for hours in 90-plus degrees with 99% humidity on a Wednesday mid-afternoon. I mean, they were going to make sure that they got to the polls. There was no, oh, well, you know, I got work today and I don't think I can get there, or my kid's sick. They would have walked through a hurricane.
And you said they actually, you thought, one of the things you say in the book is that they made up their mind much earlier than most people.
Yeah, look at the South Carolina exit polls during the primaries. Donald Trump, the majority of voters said that they decided that they were going to vote for him months and months prior. So back in December, back in November. So anything that we were reporting about him didn't really matter. They weren't paying attention. They may have been watching, they knew what was going on, but they didn't care because they already decided that Donald Trump was a person that they wanted in the White House because they were so sick of Washington. And there was also a sense that you will tell a pollster one thing because it was not, and I'm sure Kellyanne Conway will agree with this, it was not a popular thing for some people to say that, yes, they like Donald Trump. But when you go into that polling booth, you're going to make the decision that maybe, you know, maybe to throw a bomb into it. But you're not going to tell anyone about it. You're not even going to tell the guy that calls you on the phone to ask you your opinion at home.
We're running out of time, but does anyone have a question for Kellyanne? I think we have one right here in the front row.
Or for Katy.
I'm sorry. Oh, my God.
Sorry. Thank you very much for all that you did on the reporting. And you said you said the media did not elect Donald Trump. However, because he's such an anti-establishment figure in politics, it's almost like the more negative coverage he got is the stronger his base grew. So how do you deal with that?
Well, listen, the media is not trying to elect anybody or unelect anybody. That's not our role. Our role is to tell you what is going on, to contextualize the candidate, to fact-check the candidate, to reveal as much as you can about this person so you can make the most informed decision that you can. So if the fact-checking only makes his base stronger, that's on his base. It's not really on us. We do our jobs. Our jobs are to dig, to hold a light up to who this person is, and to put them in context.
Yeah. Over here? Wait for the mic, please. Sorry. There we go. Yeah.
So you have done and seen it all. What advice would you give to the next round of presidential candidates to be a winner?
Don't trust anything a politician or his staff says. I mean, that's not our job. Don't trust anything anyone says. Make sure that you get a second source on it. Make sure that you dig around on it. And also, don't be quiet. Don't be intimidated.
What would you say to the next round of
Candidates.
Don't body slam us.
Just quickly, tell us a little bit about your upbringing. Your parents were journalists also.
Yeah. My parents were cowboys. They were helicopter reporters mostly in the 90s in Los Angeles. My dad flew the helicopter, and my mom hung out of the helicopter with a beta cam on her shoulder, a giant camera on her shoulder, and dangled out over the skids and shot fires, shot police pursuits. They found OJ in that slow-speed pursuit, and they also did some spectacular award-winning reporting during the LA riots. My mom was hanging out of the helicopter while gang members were shooting up at the helicopter. They were covering the beating of Reginald Denny, the guy that got pulled from the red gravel truck and beaten to within an inch of his life. So they did spectacular, ballsy things while I was growing up. And they got death threats for that because they had all of they showed the faces of the would-be murderers.
So this was in your genes.
Yeah, so I didn't realize, you said I got death threats in the campaign. I didn't really think about it in the moment. I just kind of put it to the side. Good at compartmentalizing. And I realized later that I probably it didn't bother me in the way that it should have bothered me because I was used to it. My dad slept with a gun under his pillow while I was growing up. He had a concealed weapons license because they got death threats. So it just felt like if you're going to do important journalism, sometimes the price you pay is having to deal with crazy people trying to or at least talking about killing you.
Being fierce and being brave runs in your family. We're grateful for your time today. And
Thanks so much for
congratulations on
having
your
me.
book. Thank you,
Thanks.
Katy. Thanks so much.
Great.